Hey YouTube, my name is Daniel. Welcome back to the second episode in the Flutter game deal series. So in the last episode we created our database handler, our API service, and also our constants file. So next up we have our view models. So these are going to be the classes which actually present the game objects to our UI and prepare it to be shown on the game list and also the game detail screen. So first off, we're going to create a view model for a single game object, which will be shown on the detail screen. So we need to go new Dart file on the view models package, and this is going to be called game underscore view model. Then we need to give it a name, so class game view model, and we need to declare the game up here and just import that class. And then we need to initialize it in the constructor, and that needs to be required. And we just need to give that a name of game object, like that. Then we just need to create getter methods for each method that we require in the detail screen. So we first have the title, so string get title, and then we're going to return game.external. And then if it's null, we just want to do either return empty string or game not found, or game title not found, just like that. And then we need the game ID. Now we'll return the game.game ID, and if that's null, we just have game ID not found, and we just need to follow a similar sort of methodology for the next set of functions as well. So I'll speed through these and then come back to you when they're completed and explain them. So these are all the methods that we require in the game view model. We have the two we created earlier, so the get title, the get game ID. Then we have get price, which is accessing the game.cheapest property. Then we have the image URL, which is game.fun. This is just going to return a nullable string because we have our default image URL, which we can use later if this is null or has any issues. Then we have the string URL, which is our URL for getting the deal and opening it in the browser. And to get that, we first check whether the deal ID is null. It really shouldn't be null. Every single game requires this to be able to be put onto the API, so we probably won't come into that issue, but probably best to check. And then we add in the deal URL from our constants, and then the deal ID. Otherwise we return null. Then we have a Boolean getter, just checking whether the game is saved, and then setting the game to saved here. Just going to set the game.saved to true. So that's the game view model for showing an individual game. The next view model would be our list view model for our list screen. So we need to go new Dart file, and this is going to be called games list view model. So we're going to give it a name, class games list view model. And this is going to implement change notifier because we're going to have our screens actually observing this view model. So firstly, when we're loading the list of games, we want to show that loading progress bar, and then once it's finished, we want to show them a list. And if the search is empty, we want to show a different screen. So in order to do this, we need to implement change notifier on this class. And we also need to declare an enum class down here for the actual status of loading the list. So we're going to call that loading status. The first one is going to be completed, and then searching, loading actually, and then empty. And then we need to create an instance of this. So we have loading status, we're going to call it loading status lowercase equals loading status dot empty. And then we need to declare our games lists. So firstly we have our list of game, and it needs to be game view model because we need to be actually accessing those values, and we need the setter functions and that sort of stuff as well. So make sure it's game view model. This is just going to be called games, and we just need to initialize it as an empty array. So game view model, and just to swear back this empty array. And then we need two of these, so one for the games from the API, and then one for the saved games, which we get from our DB. We just need to add semicolons at the end of this. Now we can go ahead and declare our methods. So our first method is going to be searching the games by title from the API, which is going to be void search games by title. And the reason it's void is we're not actually returning the games from this function here. We're going to be posting it to these lists up here. So we'll be posting it to this games list. And this games list would then be observed from our list screen. So yeah, void search games by title. And this is going to take a string of game title. And this is going to be an async function. And firstly, we need to set our loading status to this loading status to loading. And we need to notify our listeners. And then we need to actually make the API request. So this is going to return a list of game, which is, and we're going to call this games. And we also need to declare our API service up here as well. So we have API service lowercase, and then we just instantiate that class up here, so we're not recreating it in each call of this method. And then we can do await API service dot search games lists in the game type. And then we just need to import this here. We need to do this dot games. And then we need to map this to an actual view model, so the game view model we created earlier. And we just need extra brackets here. And this needs to be toList. So this is going to create a list of game view model. Then we just need to add the required name. So remove that there, replace the null with the game coming from here, and that's going to be our game list. And then we just need to check whether the game list is empty or not. And then we just need to update the loading status accordingly. So if the game list is empty, we want to do loading status.empty. And otherwise, we want to do loading status.completed. And then finally, we just need to notify the listener again that the status of the games list is then changed. And that's that method completed. Then the last method in this class is we just need a function for actually getting the saved games from our DB. So this is going to be a feature, get saved games. Async function again. And then we need to update our loading status. Notify our listeners. Get our list of games. And we're going to use our getInstance function. And then retrieve games. Then we just need to map through them like we did in the previous function. So saved games equals games dot map. Then we're just going to change the E to something, just change it to game. Then we need to map this to a game viewModel object. Replace game object with game, and then use the semicolon, and this is that to a list. And that is our games list, and then we just need to similar thing, or exactly the same, just checking whether the games list is empty. Yep, whether the saved games list is empty. If it is, update loading status to empty. If it's not, update it to completed. And that is the viewModels all created and done. We've got a little error here. There is no constant searching. That's because it's called loading. And that's the viewModels all completed. The next part is the screens. So before we start on the screens, I'm going to start on the actual widgets. Just because those are going to be used in the screens, then it will be easier if we create them first. So the first widget we're going to be creating is our custom button, and this is the button which is used for actually saving the game. So this button here, and also the button for getting the deal. So the idea of this is we create one button and we pass in the parameters that we need, such as the icon, the text and the color, and also the function that is going to be used when the button is pressed. So it saves an awful lot of code by doing it this way and just creating one widget. So you want to right click on widgets and select new, dart file, custom underscore button. Then we're going to call this class custom button. And extends stateful widget, because the state of this widget will be changed, like the text will change, the function, the color, that sort of stuff, so it needs to be stateful. And then we're going to declare the parameters for this widget. So we want a function, which we're going to call button handler, then a string, for the button text, which we'll call button text. Then the icon data for the icon that will be showed on the button. Then the color. And then if we want the text to change after it's being clicked, we need to actually pass that text into it as well, which would be, this can be nullable because we may not want the text to change, but we're going to call that update text. Then we need to create the constructor for the custom button. So this.button handler, this.button text, this.icon data, this.color, and this.object text. That's the constructor. Then we need to create our state object. So we need to override the create state method. And we're going to be creating this class just underneath. So we can type this out now. So underscore custom button state, create state. And then we need to pass in the parameters that we declared. So button handler, button text, icon data, color, and update text. Then we need to go ahead and create the actual widgets. So class, custom button state, extends state, custom button. Then we need to declare our parameters, so final function. In fact, it's the exact same ones up here, so let's just copy and paste. And then we need to create our constructor. And then we need a variable in here to keep track of the text inside the button. So we're going to put that button text. And we're just going to initialize it as an empty string. And this is going to be custom button state. We need to actually open this up here because we want our button text to be initialized when they actually create the class as the initial text. Which is going to be this here. We'll rename this to make it easier to understand. So initial text is the first text tag is going to be placed onto the button. And then we have the update text, which is going to replace the initial text on the button. So now we've declared all the variables and the constructor, we can go ahead and actually create this widget. So we can hover over this and we can create the missing override. So we've got our widget and then we've got our build context. We want to get rid of the unimplemented error here. We want to go ahead and start creating our widget. So we want to return an elevated button. Let's get rid of all of that for now. And the semicolon. And firstly, we've got a style for this button, which is going to be a button style object, and we're going to have the background color, That is going to be material state property dot all, and then color. And that's going to be the color that we passed in the constructor. Then we have the onPressed, so the function that's going to be used when this button is pressed. And we have the button handler. So we're going to run that function. And then we want to check whether the update text was null, so whether we actually want to update the text. So if update text is not equal to null, then the button text is going to equal update text. And after this is run, we want to set the state. So this will update the state of the button. Then we just need to add a null check here because we know this is not going to be null because we've checked it. And then when we've done the onPressed, we can add a child to this button. So this is the actual content, which is going to be a wrap. And then we need to say that we want our elements to be aligned in the center. So that is going to be done with cross-axis alignment. So that's going to be wrap cross-axis alignment, or wrap cross-alignment dot center. And then we want our children, which is an array of widgets, and it is just text, which is our button text, and our icon, and we have the icon data, which we pass in the constructor. And that is the custom button widget done. Now we can move on to the next widget, which is the search bar. So we'll go back up to widgets, and next new widget, and then search bar. So dart file. And we're going to call this class search bar. And this is going to extend stateful widget. And then we just need a variable outside this class to keep track of the last search. And the only parameter we're going to pass up here is the function for handling the search. So it'll be final function, then we're going to call this button handler as well. Then we create the constructor, this dot button handler, and then the state object, just like before. So create state. And then we want to create the search bar state down here. So extend state search bar, open the class up, and then we want to declare that function again. So final function button handler. Then we need a Boolean value, so whether we're searching or not. We're going to initialize that as false. And then we need the constructor. search bar state this dot button handler. And then we need a function for actually toggling the searching, which will be void toggle searching. And we just have set state in here, and they have if we're not searching is searching equals true. Then we have our search function. And we're going to pass our search string, which we're going to get from the user typing in. And we just do widget dot button handler, and then we're going to pass our search string. Then we update the last search to that string we pass in here. We need to update this to is searching, not searching. Now we can go ahead and actually create our widget. So if we go up to here, create our missing override, and get rid of the unimplemented error. First off, we need to declare some variables. The first one is going to be our search string. Then we need to create our text controller for actually reading the text in our edit text box. So when we're actually typing in here, we need to know what they're typing in order to get the value and then query the API. So you want to declare that now. So that's going to be text editing controller. We're going to call that controller, and we'll just initialize that right here. Then we need to add a listener to that controller. Then we need to check the length of the text inside the controller. So controller.text.length. If that's greater than 1, we can update our query. So search string equals controller.text toString. And that is our controller sorted. So it's that semicolon there. And then we can go ahead and create our next variable. So controller.text equals last search. So every time this widget gets recalled or recompiled, we just initialize the text box to the last search. And then we have controller.selection. So this is for when the user actually presses their finger onto the text box. We want the cursor to land at the end of the text in the search bar. So that's going to be text selection dot from position, and then we have text position offset. So text position offset controller dot text dot length, and that is going to be the text dot length will tell us like the end of that string. So that's where we're going to place the cursor. And just a semicolon at the end. And now we can go ahead and actually design this search bar. So first off, we want to return a container, and inside that container we first want to declare a margin. So we're going to use edge insets And then we just want 20 on the left, so left 20, and then right 20. And we want a child in this container, which is going to be our text field. And we want autofocus. This is going to give us a bit more space here to make it easier for you guys to see. So we want autofocus. Okay, I think I need to import library. Yeah, there we go. Import library.dart. So autofocus to false. Max lines, we just want that to 1, and we can set our controller to the controller that we created earlier. Then on tap, we want to toggle searching, and then we can create our decoration, which is going to be input decoration. Hint text is going to be search games. And then we need to add our border. It's going to be enabled border. Outline input border. We need to give it a radius. Circular 25. And border side, which is the actual color of the border going around the search box. Now it's going to be colors dot light blue. We want the focus border for when the user's actually put it actually pressed onto the search bar. So we could just copy and paste this because we want it to be exactly the same. And then we can add a style to our hint. That can be that's going to be a text style, and we just want colors, colors.gray. So that's just going to turn our hint gray. And then we have our suffix icon, which is going to be our search magnifying glass icon. So that will be first checking whether we are searching or not. So it is searching. And if we are, we want to have this icon button. And we're just going to clear the icon first to make it easier. So the icon will be icons, open it up, and then icon. So icon, and then icons. Dot search, and then underscore sharp. I think I just need to run import for that. Oh no, this needs to do the on press now. So on press, we need to just run that search function. Which is going to be search and then the set string. And otherwise, we just want that to be null. And that should be it created. We just need to figure out why we've got some red errors up here. So we just got a spelling mistake up here. So text position, that's fine. And this should be just a normal comma instead of a semicolon. And that is the search bar widget created. And then we just have one more widget, which is the actual games list. So we want to go to widgets and then new darts file and then games_list. So this is going to be called games list. And this is going to be another stateful widget. And then we have 3 parameters, which would be the list of games, or list of game viewmodel. We're going to call that games. Then we need the database handler in this widget. Underscore database handler. And we just go and initialize that here. And then we need a Boolean value for is saved list, because we want slightly different behavior, whether we have the list of saved games or the list of games from the API. Then we need to create the constructor, so games list. And then we have a required value, which is the games, and also whether we've got a saved list or not. Then we need to override the create state, just like in the other widgets. So override games list state, create state, and then we just need to pass the parameters. So we've got the list, we've got the database handler, and the is saved list. Then we just need to go ahead and create that class. So class underscore games list state extends game state games list. And then we need these values in here as well. And we don't need to get the instance again. Let's have database handler. Don't need that. And we just create the constructor. Stop games. List dot database handler. It's saved list. Now we can go ahead and create this widget. So firstly, we need to create a method for actually clicking on the game and then navigating to the detail screen. So this is going to be a feature method because we need to actually check whether the game is saved in our DB. So this is going to be called show game details. And this is going to take a context, game, and a game view model. It's going to be a game, and then it's an async function. Firstly, we need to check whether the game is saved or not. So it's going to be a Boolean value. It's going to be called is saved, and that's going to be an await function. So and we need to access the database handler, and then we check is game saved, and then we pass in the game ID, which we can access from the game view model, just like that. And then we just need to check if is saved. Then we can actually set the game object to saved here. And what this will do is this will stop them being able to actually press the button and resave the game. And once we've done that, we can then allow them to navigate to that screen. So we access the navigator and we set a push, we pass the context, and then we just declare a material page route. And we've got the builder. And we see the curly brackets and the underscore. And then our function here. We're going to put a semicolon at the end of it, and then we just want to return. Here we will return our game detail screen, but we haven't actually created that yet. But we will just do that in the future. So I guess at the moment we can just return a container. Yeah, that works for now, but in the future we will need to update this. We just need to put return here. And now we can go ahead and actually start styling this widget. So create the override, get rid of the unimplemented error. That's going to give us a bit more space down here. And what we want to do is we want to return a list view. So this is going to be the entire list of our games. So we need to use a list view builder. Now it's going to take an item builder. So just put this all on one line. So first off we have the item count, which is going to be games.length. Then we have our item builder, and that's going to take a context and the index. And we just see to our function body right here. And first off we need to declare our game object, which is going to be games and index. So this is going to be the actual game object for the row that you're in the list. So this game will be this game here. So if you're on row 1 in the list, you will then have this game. And then we need to get the image from that game. So that'll be image game dot image URL. And if that's null, we can then use our default URL, which we created in our constants. So default game image right there. Now we can return the actual list item that we want for every single game. So this is going to be a card. And the child is going to be a list tile. And it's going to have a leading element, which is going to be the first element in the tile, which is going to be the image. So we have our image here, and then we have our title, and then our price, and then this little arrow icon, just to indicate, just to press it to go to the next page. So that's going to be a cached network image. And we're going to have an image URL, which is going to be the image, and we need to give it a height and a size. A width, I mean. So height is going to be 50, and width is going to be 50 as well. And that's the leading element. Then we need title, which is going to be a text widget. And it's going to be game.title. And subtitle. And that's going to be the price. And we need to have a dollar string here, so we need to escape the dollar symbol. So that's going to be this slash here. And just the dollar symbol, and then we need to do plus game.price to string, and then we need a trailing icon as well, which is going to be that arrow. So that's going to be icons.arrow, and it's going to be forward iOS. And then we need the on tap. On tap is just actually just pressing the icon, so just like that. On long press is where we have the delete dialog. So on tap, we want to run the show game details function. And it's just going to pass the context and the game. And then we have the on long press. And we only want to do this if we're in the save list. So if is save list, and we want to create an alert object. This is from that dependency that we declared earlier. So alert and then context. And then we have the type. This is going to be alert type dot info. And then the title, which is going to be delete deal. Just like that. And then we have a description. Do you want to delete this deal? And then we have the buttons, which is an array of widgets. So we have dialog button, and firstly we have a child for that. That's just going to be text. That's just going to be yes. And then we just need to add a style to this as well. It's going to be text style, color, colors.white. And we want to add a font size, which is going to be 20. And then we have an onPress function as well for this button. This is going to be delete deal. And then that's going to take a game context. We haven't actually created this yet, but we're just going to create pretty soon. And then we just need to add a width, which is going to be 120, which is the width of the dialog. And then down here, we just need to do dot show, semicolon. And this needs a semicolon as well. And underneath here, I'm just going to create the delete deal function. So let's get an underscore to that. So here we're going to create a delete deal function. So we just need to type delete deal, and that's going to take a game view model, which we're going to call game, and a build context, which is called context. And then we need the database handler, and we're just going to use delete game. We need the game ID, so game.gameID, and then when that's completed, we're setting up some brackets in here. So when that's completed, we want to remove that game from the games list. So this games.remove game, set the state, so we want to make sure this list gets updated and it shows that the game has been removed. And then when that's done, we want to use navigator .pop, and what this would do is this will actually bring down that alert dialog what I showed you before. So when we actually delete in a game, when we click yes, it's going to call the database handler, delete the game, remove the game from the in-memory list, which is shown on this screen, and then set the state so that game will be gone from the list, and then use the navigator to remove this dialog, just like that. And we just need to add semicolon here, remove that one here, and then this is the games list widget done. So with the games list completed, that's the final widget, and I think that's a good place to end this video. In this video, we've created all the view models we need. So we have the game view model, the games list view model, and also all the widgets, so the custom button, the games list, and the search bar. In the next video, we'll be looking at creating the actual screens, so the list screen and then the detail screen, and that will be the project completed. So if you please join me in the next video and like and subscribe.